In March of 1991, Sierra Leone entered into one of Africa's bloodiest and most brutal civil wars, when rebel fighters of the Revolutionary United Front (RUF), under the leadership of former Army Corporal Foday Sanko with help from Liberian warlord Charles Taylor and his group, the National Patriotic Front of Liberia (NPFL), launched an insurrection in an attempt to overthrow the government of Sierra Leonean President Joseph Saidu Momo. The war lasted for almost 11 years and had over 50,000 up to 70,000 casualties in total. An estimated 2.5 million people were displaced during the conflict, and widespread atrocities occurred. The conflict was particularly violent and long because both the Revolutionary United Front (RUF) and the Sierra Leone government were often funded by blood diamonds. This video is the first of a series of videos that deal with the Sierra Leone Civil War that almost led to the destruction of the country. In this episode, we look at why former Army Corporal Foday Sanko was imprisoned in 1971 and why he invaded Sierra Leone in 1991. We also look at why former Liberian President and warlord Charles Taylor supported Foday Sanko in his fight against Sierra Leonean President Joseph Saidu Momo. Foday Saibana Sanko was born on October 17, 1937, in the remote village of Masang Mayoso in Tonkolili district in northern Sierra Leone. He was the son of a farmer. He attended schools in Magboroka town, the capital and largest city of Tonkolili district in northern Sierra Leone. After getting basic education, Sanko took on a number of jobs before enlisting in the Sierra Leone Army in 1956. He was trained as a signal officer and photographer and rose to the rank of corporal. On April 27, 1961, Sierra Leone gained independence from Britain, with Sir Milton Margai of the Sierra Leone People's Party, the SLPP, as the first Prime Minister of the country, and in 1962 Sanko served briefly in the Sierra Leonean military unit that participated in the failed United Nations peacekeeping operation in the former Belgian Congo. In 1963, Sanko was sent to Nigeria for a 6-month training course in radio communications. 3 years later, in 1966, he was sent to England for another 6 months training, again in communications, including radio and television operations. He returned to Sierra Leone in 1967. In 1971, Sanko was dismissed from the army and jailed for 7 years at the Pademba Road prison in Freetown for taking part in an abortive coup attempt led by the army commander, Brigadier John Amadou Bangura, on March 23, 1971. Against Prime Minister Siaka Stevens of the All People's Congress Party, the APC. The army commander, Brigadier John Amadou Bangura, and 3 others were tried, convicted, and executed. This was the first official sanctioned killing by the government. Others in the plot were arrested and imprisoned, including Corporal Foday Sanko, who was dismissed from the army and imprisoned for 7 years. It was during his time in prison that caused his animosity towards the APC regime in general, as well as his resentment of Joseph Saidu Momo, who succeeded John Amadou Bangura as head of the army, and who Sanko accused of having betrayed his commander, in particular, as it was Momo who informed Siaka Stevens about the coup plot. In the same year of 1971, Siaka Stevens declared Sierra Leone a republic with himself as the first executive president. Siaka Stevens became an absolute dictator with control of both parliament and the courts. Siaka Stevens also grossly mismanaged the economy. Stevens' rule saw the destruction and perversion of every state institution. Parliament was undermined, judges were bribed, elections were rigged and violent, and the treasury was emptied to finance small projects that benefited he and his close allies. The late 1960s to mid-1970s saw frequent state of emergency and numerous executions of political foes. Ex-Corporal Foday Sanko was released from prison in 1978, the same year Siaka Stevens declared Sierra Leone a one-party state. Upon his release from prison, Sanko worked as a commercial photographer in the south and eastern part of the country, eventually making contact with a bunch of young anti-government radicals, to whom, because of his age and army background, he became a kind of benevolent godfather. In 1985, Siaka Stevens was 80 years old. He retired from office and handed over power to Major General Joseph Saidu Momo, the army commander and the highest-ranking officer in the army. Siaka Stevens' rule came to be known as the 17 Years Plague of Locusts. Momo wasn't a tyrant like Siaka Stevens, but he was weak and ineffectual, and criticized for his frequent drinking parties. Momo inherited a destroyed economy that continued to decline. In November of 1987, Momo declared a state of emergency after workers in the public sector engaged in strike caused by the government inability to pay their salaries. With the state unable to pay its civil servants, those desperate enough ransacked and looted government offices and property. Even in Freetown, important commodities like gasoline were scarce. Momo himself had to admit over the BBC Focus on Africa that he had failed the people of Sierra Leone. The government hit rock bottom when it could no longer pay school teachers, and the education system collapsed. Momo declared that education was a privilege and not